just got done watching Will Smith's brand new Apple TV movie called Emancipation, heading to theaters this weekend. It's about a runaway slave who forges through the swamps of Louisiana on a torturous journey to escape plantation owners that nearly killed him. It's directed by Antoine Fuqua and written by Collage, and again stars Will Smith, Ben Foster, and many more. Now, let's get the elephant out of the room right away. Yes, Will Smith did that at the Oscars. Let's not talk about it anymore. There's no need to do any of that. It's happened. It's gone. I'm over it. I just want to talk about this movie and really much center on that. Honestly, let me just say this as well. If you are someone who cannot get over that and refuses to watch another Will Smith movie or do not want to watch this because of that, completely understand. I just do not want to talk about it. I want to focus on the movie and the filmmaking and all sorts of things like that. So again, leave your thoughts down below, hit that like and subscribe button, and let's dive into this movie because as you can see from the title and my thumbnail, honestly at this point I don't even know what I've decided to do it as, but I'm very mixed on this movie. I found this movie to kind of lack a lot of dimensions that it truly needed to be, even though exceptionally it has a fantastic performance and honestly some of the best directing from Antoine Fuqua. A lot of my issues actually come down to some of the editing and the script, which we're going to talk about, but I want to start with my pros like I do most reviews. And for me, when Emancipation was being announced, I thought, oh, Antoine Fuqua directing this. This could be kind of interesting. And I saw the concept and I'm like, okay, this is even more interesting because from my knowledge, Antoine Fuqua's never done a movie like this. He's done a lot of action movies. He's done a lot of crime dramas, but nothing in this vein of before. And discussing with one of my friends, Griffin from Film Speak, he put it this way. This movie very much feels like The Revenant. You probably remember that movie from Leonardo DiCaprio, and in a lot of ways, this movie can feel that way. Now, obviously, Will Smith doesn't get mauled by a bear. He's literally trying to escape plantation owners. And looking at that, half of this movie, not even half, 75% of this movie is a survival film. And then the last 25% of the movie is a part of him joining a war and going forward with that. Now, keep that in mind right there. What Will Smith does in here is transformative. It is an absolute camouflaged performance that I truly was shocked by because I, for one, did not even recognize him. From the accent to the weight he lost to truly just how he was embodying himself, this is the best performance of Will Smith's career. Reiterating the same thing that I said last year when I saw King Richard, but putting this and King Richard side by side, this is his best performance. King Richard, I still somewhat saw Will Smith for a majority of that film. Emancipation, I did not see any bit of him. He gave his absolute all, and it sucks because this was a performance he would be nominated for. That's how good he is in this movie, and I was honestly really impressed with that overall. And everyone else in this movie is pretty much good, but in general, just like how The Revenant was very much a film focused directly on Leonardo DiCaprio's performance, the same thing can kind of be done here as well. It is mostly his journey, his survival, as well as his journey through the Civil War, and in general kind of things that happen when he happens to join the army. And in elements like that, I was quite interested and surprised to see how this entire story played out, but it also felt very B-movie-ish. And again, I'm going to talk about that, but I do want to focus one more time on Antoine Fuqua and his directing, his eye for the camera, the cinematography, and the way that he really makes an impactful, powerful imagery throughout this entire film. Every single thing feels real in here. Every single shot, every single frame, every single thing, the way that he really brought this movie to life feels like an old-timey film, and that you're rewatching pieces of history that should never be forgotten. And I think Antoine Fuqua's directing in here and his eye for that vision is again some of the best parts of this. This movie is a mixed bag for me overall because you have an amazing performance and an amazing director who has a very impactful imagery to showcase here. But this is where my issue comes down to this movie. And I've kind of like tried to teeter-totter around it. It is a very one-dimensional film. It's a movie that, Will Smith has a family in this movie. Never really gives you any emotional weight to that. You care because it's his family, but other than that, I didn't care. Like, I truly just didn't. And maybe I'm just an asshole for saying that, but I wanted more emotional depth. I wanted more chemistry. I wanted more build up to that. And for me, I didn't feel that at all. As well as this whole survival, that 75% that I was talking about. can get a little bit repetitive. And I would even say the same thing about The Revenant. The Revenant gets a little bit repetitive too. I am not the biggest fan of survival movies. There are a ton of them out there, and I find almost each and every one of them to be a bit too repetitive. And for the first 75% of this movie, I'm like, okay, if this movie was just shorter, this movie would be way better. But it just continues and continues to do the same thing through different events, knowing what this character is going to be at the very end. And I wasn't the biggest fan of that. And it just kind of dragged for that first 75%. And then you get to the last 25%. And for me, that first 75%, again, addresses a lot of interesting themes that, again, we've seen multiple times throughout different movies and different slave movies as well, and are all important, but we've seen them a lot. The ideas in the last 25% of the film, everything that happens to do with, like, the North, war, army, all sorts of things like that, are actually some of the most interesting aspects of this entire film. There are certain themes in there that I was kind of baffled that they did not focus on more. And in fact, the last 25 minutes is pretty montage throughout, and I just sat there baffled that I have no emotional weight now to anything because it just is montaging through everything. And that is where I don't know if it's a script issue and that's how the script was written, or if it's an editing issue and that's where the editing has an issue and they had to edit or take stuff out. I was very disappointed in the back half of this movie because I found that it started out strong, and while, again, just personally, I'm not a huge fan of survival movies, I was still locked in, but I was waiting and hoping to get a grand ending that's going to be like, yes, all of this is worth it. And by the time I got to the last 25%, I just really felt like I not wasted my time, but that this wasn't a must-watch. This isn't the movie that I expected it to be. And maybe my expectations got the best of me, but I expected a better movie here. And I think that's where I don't have much more to say, other than Emancipation strives to be the strong surprise of the year, but it doesn't fully come together. Smith, he's excellent. Might even be his best performance. There's powerful imagery, great cinematography, but it's a truly one-note story that I found to lack a lot of the most intriguing ideas that were brought up and the themes that truly should have been executed a little bit stronger in there. And I do not blame Antoine Fuqua. I do think this is a writing or an editing issue, and I'm really curious to actually read the script for this to see if that's how it was written, because I would have changed out quite a few things in the beginning and some of the stuff towards the end, and I wouldn't have minded if this movie was longer, as long as it gave that development. So with all that said, I'm going to give Emancipation a C. If you're a fan of Will Smith and you want to see a comeback, definitely go check this out because I still think this is a great performance from him and arguably probably his best one. But other than that, guys, make sure to leave your thoughts down below, hit that like and subscribe button, and also, again, I cannot wait to read your thoughts down below. So of course, until next time, stay classy.